Today, we're dissecting engineering management, not the glossy leadership principles from management books, but the brutal reality where brilliant engineers become disastrous managers, where the only career advancement path leads away from what you love doing, and where people problems can't be debugged with a stacked trace. 3 experts who have survived the transition from individual contributor to manager, watched talented engineers flame out in leadership roles, and learned why treating humans like code produces spectacular failures. I'm Sam, and someone just asked me why our most productive engineer became our least effective manager.
I've been on both sides of this disaster. I was a senior engineer who got promoted to manager because I shipped features fast and knew the codebase well. Nobody told me that debugging race conditions was easier than managing personality conflicts, or that code reviews were simpler than performance reviews. I nearly destroyed my team before learning that engineering management is a completely different skill set.
I've watched great engineers become terrible managers and then burn out trying to get back to coding. The promotion system is broken. We take our best individual contributors and turn them into mediocre people managers. I chose the IC track and had to fight for years to get compensation and respect equal to management roles. The system assumes everyone wants to manage people.
I've guided hundreds of engineers through career transitions and organizational design challenges. The pattern is clear. Companies that understand the difference between technical leadership and people management succeed. Companies that promote engineers to management without training, support, or understanding of the role usually create disasters for everyone involved.
Dr. Martinez guide us through this management wasteland. Rachel and Maria prepare to explain why just be logical with people became the most destructive management philosophy in tech. No mercy, no hand-waving about soft skills.
Let's start with the fundamental misconception. Why do great engineers often become terrible managers?
Because the skills are completely different, but nobody tells you that. As an engineer, you solve logical problems with deterministic outcomes. As a manager, you solve human problems with emotional complexity and uncertain outcomes. People aren't systems. They have feelings, motivations, bad days, and personal lives that affect their work. You can't refactor a personality conflict.
Plus, the reward system changes completely. Engineers get satisfaction from building things, solving complex problems, and seeing their code work. Managers get satisfaction from what? Meetings, performance reviews. Watching other people code while you slowly forget how to do it yourself. Most engineers hate the actual activities that management requires.
What are the most common failure modes when engineers become managers?
Micromanaging technical decisions while ignoring team dynamics. New engineering managers often focus on what they understand: code architecture, technical trade-offs, while completely missing interpersonal issues. They'll spend hours debating framework choices, but ignore the fact that 2 team members aren't speaking to each other.
The just be logical fallacy. Engineers try to solve people problems with engineering solutions. If you're unhappy with your role, here's a logical plan to improve it. But human motivation isn't a requirements document. People need empathy, recognition, and emotional support, not optimization plans.
How does the transition from individual contributor to manager typically go wrong?
Day 1, you're solving complex technical problems and getting immediate feedback from working code. Day 2, you're in meetings discussing alignment and strategy with no clear definition of success. Most new managers panic and either retreat into technical work, becoming coding managers who don't manage, or become meeting addicts who lose touch with the actual work.
What about the brilliant asshole problem? How do technical managers handle difficult but productive team members?
This is where engineering managers often fail spectacularly. They tolerate toxic behavior because the person ships code fast, but one brilliant asshole can destroy team productivity, kill morale, and drive away multiple good engineers. The math never works out. You lose more productivity from team dysfunction than you gain from one person's output.
New managers struggle with this because they think in terms of individual performance metrics rather than team dynamics. They see the brilliant assholes commit count and think this person is valuable. They don't see the knowledge hoarding, the demoralized team members, or the projects that fail because nobody wants to collaborate.
How do compensation and career progression contribute to these management failures?
Most companies have broken career ladders. The only way to get significant raises or recognition is to become a manager, even if you're terrible at it and hate it. So you get engineers taking management roles for money or status, not because they want to develop people or build teams. That's a recipe for disaster.
And companies don't provide proper management training or support. They promote someone on Friday and expect them to be effective managers on Monday. No coaching, no mentorship, no gradual transition. It's like throwing someone into senior engineering work without teaching them to code.
What about the meeting culture that seems to plague engineering management?
Meeting addiction is a coping mechanism for new managers who don't know how to add value. They schedule meetings because that's what managers do, right? But most engineering meetings are information broadcasts that could be emails or consensus-building exercises that avoid making actual decisions. Engineers hate this because it interrupts deep work.
How do agile methodologies and process frameworks affect engineering management?
Scrum and Agile frameworks become security blankets for managers who don't know how to manage. Instead of learning to understand their team's needs and challenges, they implement rigid processes. Daily stand-ups become status reports, sprint planning becomes bureaucracy, and retrospectives become complaint sessions without actionable outcomes.
The worst part is when managers use agile metrics, story points, velocity, burn-down charts to measure individual performance. These metrics were designed for team planning, not performance evaluation. Using them to judge engineers destroys trust and encourages gaming the system.
What does good engineering management actually look like?
Good engineering managers are force multipliers, not task assigners. They remove blockers, provide context and strategy, shield the team from organizational chaos, and help engineers grow their skills. They ask, what do you need to be successful? Not, why isn't this done yet? They optimize for team productivity and happiness, not individual output metrics.
How do you handle the technical skills decay that comes with management?
This is the hardest part. Your technical skills will decay if you're doing management right. You should be spending time on people, strategy, and organization, not writing code. But you need enough technical credibility to make good architectural decisions and earn team respect. It's a constant balance, and honestly, it's painful to watch your coding skills atrophy.
How should companies structure engineering career paths to avoid these problems?
Dual-track systems with equivalent compensation and respect. Technical leadership roles, principal engineer, staff engineer, distinguished engineer, should be as prestigious and well-paid as management roles. And they should involve real technical leadership, not just senior individual contribution. Leading architecture, mentoring engineers, driving technical strategy.
Plus, management should be a reversible decision. Engineers should be able to try management for a year and return to IC roles without career penalty. This removes the pressure to succeed at management even if you hate it, and it gives managers real technical backgrounds to draw from.
What about the hiring and evaluation challenges for engineering managers?
It's incredibly hard to evaluate management effectiveness in interviews. You can't give someone a coding challenge for people's skills. Reference checks are crucial, but previous companies rarely give honest feedback about management failures. Most bad managers interview well because they're confident and can talk about process and strategy.
How do you manage the transition for engineers who do want to become managers?
Gradual exposure and mentorship. Start with tech lead roles, project management, mentoring junior engineers. Give them management training before the promotion, not after. Pair them with experienced managers who can coach them through the early mistakes, and set clear expectations about what management actually involves.
What about the scaling challenges as engineering teams grow?
This is where most engineering managers break. Managing 5 engineers is completely different from managing 15 or managing managers. The skills don't scale linearly. You need to learn delegation, organizational design, and strategic thinking. Most first-time managers never develop these skills because they're still trying to figure out basic people management.
How do remote work and distributed teams affect engineering management?
Remote work exposed how many managers were just managing by physical presence rather than actual leadership. Micromanagers who relied on seeing people at desks completely failed when teams went remote. Good managers who focused on outcomes and communication actually became more effective because they had to develop better systems and processes.
What about the psychological and emotional challenges of management?
Management is emotionally exhausting in ways that engineering isn't. You're responsible for other people's careers, happiness, and success. You deal with performance issues, interpersonal conflicts, and organizational politics. You make decisions that affect people's lives. The emotional weight is completely different from debugging code, and most engineers aren't prepared for it.
How do you handle performance management and difficult conversations?
This is where engineering managers struggle most. Engineers are trained to be direct about technical issues, but performance problems require empathy, patience, and careful communication. You can't just say your code is bad, fix it. You need to understand why performance is suffering, provide support and resources, and sometimes make hard decisions about team fit.
So engineering management isn't just engineering plus people. It's a completely different discipline that requires emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, and people skills that most engineers never develop. This is more like social work than software engineering.
Welcome to the reality of technical leadership. Anyone can learn to code, but building effective engineering teams, developing people's careers, and creating productive work environments. That requires understanding human psychology, organizational dynamics, and leadership principles that have nothing to do with algorithms or architecture.
This episode was brought to you by Engineer Panic, where we expose the gap between technical brilliance and management competence. Because understanding why your best engineer became your worst manager might be more important than your system architecture. We're back. Let's talk about the practical nightmare of actually succeeding at engineering management. Rachel, what's the most counterintuitive advice for engineers considering management?
Your job is not to have all the technical answers anymore. Your job is to help your team find the answers and make good decisions. The hardest part of the transition is letting go of being the smartest person in the room and becoming the person who makes everyone else smarter and more effective.
Seriously consider whether you actually want to manage people or whether you just want career advancement. If you love coding and solving technical problems, there are other paths to growth and impact. Don't become a manager just because it's the expected progression.
Understand that management is a service role. You exist to help your team be successful, not to be the hero who saves every project. Good managers are often invisible when things go well and only visible when they're removing obstacles or providing support.
What are the biggest red flags in engineering management?
Managers who still write production code regularly. It sounds good in theory, but it usually means they're either micromanaging technical decisions or neglecting their management responsibilities. You can't optimize both individual technical output and team effectiveness simultaneously.
Metrics obsession without context. Managers who focus on velocity, story points, or commit counts without understanding what drives those numbers. And managers who can't clearly articulate what their team is working on or why it matters to the business.
Communication failures. Managers who can't translate between technical teams and business stakeholders, who avoid difficult conversations, or who don't provide clear context and priorities to their teams. Communication is the core management skill.
How do you evaluate your own effectiveness as an engineering manager?
Team retention, growth, and happiness. Are people staying on your team? Are they developing new skills and advancing their careers? Do they seem engaged and motivated? These are leading indicators of management effectiveness that matter more than delivery metrics.
What keeps you up at night about the current state of engineering management?
The promotion trap is getting worse, not better. Companies are creating more management roles without providing adequate training or support. We're systematically taking great engineers and turning them into mediocre managers, which hurts both their careers and their teams.
The devaluation of senior individual contributors. Companies pay lip service to technical leadership tracks, but the real power and compensation still flow to management. This creates perverse incentives where people become managers for the wrong reasons.
The lack of systematic development for management skills. We have boot camps for coding, extensive training for technical skills, but most engineering managers learn through trial and error at their team's expense. Management skills can be taught, but most companies don't invest in it.
How do you build engineering management skills deliberately?
Start with self-awareness, understanding your own communication style, emotional triggers, and leadership preferences. Then focus on active listening, empathy, and conflict resolution. These are learnable skills, but they require practice and feedback, just like coding.
Final advice for engineers navigating the management decision.
Be honest about what motivates you and what you're good at. Management can be incredibly rewarding if you genuinely enjoy developing people and building teams, but it's miserable if you're just doing it for career advancement. There's no shame in being a brilliant individual contributor.
Fight for better IC career paths at your company. The only way to fix the promotion trap is to create real alternatives to management. Senior engineers should have influence, compensation, and recognition equal to managers, with clear progression paths that don't require managing people.
Remember that both individual contribution and management are essential for successful engineering organizations. Neither is inherently better or more valuable. The goal is matching people's skills and interests with roles where they can have maximum impact and satisfaction.
This has been Engineer Panic. We've learned that engineering management is a completely different discipline from engineering, that the promotion trap destroys careers and teams, and that good managers are force multipliers who focus on people rather than code. Sweet dreams, and may your one-on-ones actually be helpful.
Thanks for the reality check. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to have a difficult conversation with an engineer about performance issues, mediate a conflict between two team members, and somehow find time to review the architecture proposal that's been sitting in my inbox for a week.
And I need to explain to my skip level why I turned down another management opportunity and why my technical leadership contributions are actually more valuable than having direct reports.
Keep building, keep learning, and keep questioning whether the traditional career progression paths actually serve people and organizations well. The future belongs to companies that can develop both excellent engineers and excellent engineering managers.
This has been Engineer Panic, where technical excellence meets management reality. Until next time, remember, your manager isn't failing because they're not smart enough. They're failing because management is a completely different skill set that nobody taught them.